we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. Not a problem. Yeah, cool. So today we're here with Harrison. We actually met on LinkedIn, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I reached out
It
to
was
you.
yeah, literally just out of nowhere. It's quite bold, but I mean, I'll
Bold,
touch on
yeah.
that in a bit. Yeah,
Boldest
but
time
yeah, it's good.
messaging people. Yeah. So I reached out to you on LinkedIn because I saw you done quite a few internships, had a lot of experience in banking, even though you're still a student. And so we had a little phone conversation. We had a chat about that and what led you to that. So I thought that this would be a good thing to include in this webinar or podcast series.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and
Okay,
what
cool.
you do.
Well, I mean, yeah, thanks for having me. Basically, so I'm a second year econ student at Edinburgh. Originally from Oxford, so tried to move as far away as possible from home without like compromising the university and going, to the States. So like Edinburgh was a happy kind of medium, and it's a great city. If none of you have been there, really recommend it. But anyway, yeah. So banking. I've kind of been interested in banking since maybe like 16, 15. You kind of watch films, you push your limits a little bit. You're watching like Wolf of Wall Street and you feel very cool because it's, like a 15. But in a weird way, it was like, wow, this is actually really exciting. Going onto a trading floor and kind of working and talking to people and making money through sales. It's just something I hadn't really had much exposure to because of like my mum's a carer and my dad works in HR. So they don't really have the finance background, or at least teaching me it. So to watch this film, and see them traveling around the world on super yachts and things like that, it kind of sparked something. So you look into it, you watch YouTube videos, and then just kind of made a plan that this is how I'm going to do it. I'm going to go to uni. I'm going to study economics because apparently that was something people do if you want to go into banking, and then just kind of go from there. Luckily, I actually do enjoy econ, but yeah, my motivations weren't perhaps in the right place. It was just like, yeah, okay, do an econ degree, then go into finance. But it's a pretty cool subject.
Fair. Okay. And how did you actually go and get your first experience in banking and the financial sector to get a taste?
Yeah, sure. So my first experience was actually in wealth management. Where I live, there's a local family office for wealth management. They haven't got a huge amount of assets under management. I think it's like around 30 million. So, I mean, it's not tiny, but it's not, one of the big players either. So I went there for just a couple of weeks. Dan, the director, kind of introduced me to portfolio management and how to interact with clients and things like that. And honestly, it was really, really good. I really enjoyed it. It just wasn't for me. It was a little bit too slow paced. There wasn't enough interaction going. I prefer to actually, talk to people and do things like this. But when you're at a junior level, at least within a wealth management industry, you're not interacting with the clients. That's more for the, senior people. So I kind of revisited my options. I was like, okay, maybe I could be a trader or a banker, and then just kind of started applying to different internships, and then which led on to Spring Week applications and things like that.
Yeah. And would you have any? I mean, because you transition, so you realize that one of the fields wasn't quite for you. So then, how did
Yeah,
you go
exactly.
about and pick the other ones? Did you just try more, or and then
Well,
pick random?
exactly. I mean, I was working. So when I hit 16, I got a job in a pub, just a local pub. And the guy came in and he had this really flashy Rolex. And I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty cool. Just because I'm into watches. So I'm like looking at wrists. And I was like, okay, how do you do this? What's your job? And he said, okay, I'm into wealth management. So I thought maybe that's what I want to go into. When I decided it wasn't, he was like super okay with it. And he was like, okay, I'm going to introduce you to some of my mates. They do like corporate financial advisory. One of them owns a little venture capital firm just outside of Oxford. And it's just kind of making connections out of this one person, but it's because you have to have the confidence just to strike up a conversation, even if you don't think they're the end, they're the end goal. Like chances are they will know someone who perhaps is that kind of end goal. So yeah, so after I did that, I reached out to a couple of bankers. There was one guy at Nomura who was super helpful. We hopped on like a 20-minute phone call. It's like, this is what I do day to day. I mean, the hours are hell. I think it was an associate, and he's like, yeah, the hours are hell. It's 80 hour weeks. I was like, right, okay. And then he kind of hit it. It was like, but it's really cool. I get to travel around the world. You make bank, and yeah, it's just a pretty cool job. So I think that was a big turning point for when I was like, okay, forget the rest of the industry. Like banking, investment banking, is where to go.
Fair. Okay. That's what I found as well. Speaking to actually people in the industry and reaching out to people and having a chat, 20-minute phone call.
Definitely. Yeah.
Like the best way. And then how did that then lead on to you getting your first internships and some actual experience in investment banking?
Sure. So, I mean, this kind of transition towards investment banking kind of happened before I went to university. So, I mean, as I said, 15, 16 is when I started getting interested in watching Wolf of Wall Street, those kind of films. Then made the connection, then realized connections are useful. So when I went into uni, that was just the priority, like just go and meet everybody, anyone, get involved with all the finance clubs, Econ Society. We have a trade and investment club, which is great. But there's a couple of other things, economics for change. It's not something you would think, but I mean, with all this ESG investment now and like the emphasis on CSR, I mean, for example, Goldman won't do an IPO if there's not a female in the board. And that's something like 10 years ago you wouldn't really have considered, but it's shown the next step in CSR, corporate social responsibility. So it's just things that, you get exposure by trying new things. So when I went to uni, I did that. Met a really cool guy who was president of the Economic Society, and he did a spring week at a bulge bracket, and then it was applying to boutiques for summer. He kind of helped me build a cover letter, CV, and then after that, I started reaching out to actual like corporate people because luckily Edinburgh is quite well connected. I mean, obviously, it's way up north, like 300 miles away from Scotland, 300 miles away from London, but banks do come up. So when the banks come up, just like first one through the door, asking questions, and it can't be like there's so many kids wanting to go into banking. So you can't just be like, right, okay, what is your day to day? You can't just ask the boring questions, find something you have in common, explore it, and then kind of use that to your advantage. So I went to a Citi event in first year and I was talking to this guy about clubs in Edinburgh, like nightclubs, because he studied there like 8 years ago. It's like, okay, what's the big night now? This is the big night then. And honestly, like it's a load of nonsense, perhaps we're a little bit tipsy because, it's an open bar, but a load of rubbish, nothing to do with banking. But once I had the connection in, like I dropped him a message on LinkedIn the next day, set up a phone call the next week, and ended up getting like an internship with Citibank. I don't know whether it's through the connection, probably not, but it was definitely something I talked about in my interview. So that could have, set me apart from someone else just off of a conversation about nightclubs, So
yeah, exactly. That's a very good point. Is that the connection doesn't necessarily like grant you the internship, but it shows other people within the company who are assessing you like that.
Definitely. I mean, it shows you're interested, right? You're willing to talk, and obviously banking, right, there are these ridiculous hours. You are going to be sat at a desk for 14, 16, 18 hours a day, but you're going to be sat next to someone, right? And if you can't maintain this kind of friendly vibes, like this willingness to talk, willingness to grab a beer after work, they're not going to want you. And I'm not saying, right, okay, you've got to be a super sociable, extroverted party person, right? You just got to have something more about you than just being like this robotic kind of person who's like, oh yeah, I just want to go into banking because it's super prestige. Like it's charisma, I suppose, is a good word for it. Like you just got to be a little bit charismatic about how you approach it.
Yeah, exactly, and exactly because they spend so many hours. I mean, you want to spend time with these people and actually have some banter and have a chat. And I think it's just about being yourself when you have chats and talk about whatever you enjoy.
Yeah,
literally the most random things.
Definitely. Yeah, it's all good fun. I mean, they're only human. They just want to know you are too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then now that you've done, I mean, unless you had anything else that you learned from all the other internships you did, if you just want to explain about those, I was wondering what, based on all of your internship, what's the biggest thing that you've learned and like that you're taking forward for the future and for your career?
Sure. Okay, so start of second year, I reached out to this guy on LinkedIn. Funny story, actually. He works at a very small investment bank in Edinburgh, and there's only like 12 people on the team. So me and my mates were talking about it. I was in the pub, and I was like, "Do you know what? I'm just going to message him." So I was like, "Hi, I'm Harrison. Right, this is what I study. This is why I'm interested in banking." And I slapped my CV in as well. I've read, on LinkedIn that you're not supposed to put your CV on, but I did anyway. Anyway, he responded to me within like 20 minutes. 2 days later, we went out for coffee, and like 5 days after that, I had secured like an internship in this tiny investment bank in Edinburgh, which is awesome. I mean, you don't really hear about it. But that was really cool because it's so small, like you get so much exposure. So I started there in January. I'm actually still doing it. It's work from home now. They gave me a laptop and, sent me on my way. But you know that you're actually learning things as opposed to just watching people do things. It's not like a shadowing placement. So, they gave me Excel and they're like, build a DCF model. And like, I'm like, what is that? So, you get online, you're watching YouTube, you're asking analysts, and you're like, how do I do this? And they walk you through it. And it's just these kind of technical skills. Obviously, you can learn them at home, but it's just very different learning them at home for the sake of learning them and learning them at home to actually apply it, right? Because when you're applying it, you have more incentive. It was a paid internship, so like obviously you want the deliverable to be somewhat high quality. So yeah, I'd say that was one of the big things, like actually being committed to learning these technical skills as well, and just getting used to an office environment. It is a bit weird because I've always worked in hospitality, whether it being a waiter or I worked in Ralph Lauren for a little bit, just being a sales associate selling polo shirts and stuff like that. So being in an office environment as well, just different desks all next to each other. I can't remember what they call it, like a bull pen or something. It was weird, but you do get used to it, and I think that's another thing that internships teach you, like how to kind of cope with it. Yeah, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that was really good. And then what did you, I mean, you mentioned a couple of other jobs you've done, working at Ralph Lauren and then working in the services industry. Could you just tell, could you just say couple of things about that, or like what you learned there? The best thing about working
Yeah,
there, the
sure.
worst thing?
Yeah, no, definitely. So I mean, I wouldn't say I was a confident kid. Like, I was never the kind of guy in school who'd go to all the parties and do things like that. But I think what these jobs in hospitality taught me is just how to interact with people. Um, how to. I don't want to say serve because it kind of makes you sound like a servant, but it's just like interacting them like you're doing them a service. Um, Whether it be selling them clothes, recommending, an outfit, for example, or I worked in Soho Farmhouse and Membership Club in Oxfordshire last summer, um, just like having a chat about the day, how, I mean, if, for example, one person's on a diet, right? They're like, okay, I'm on a keto diet. And in your mind, you're like, okay, what is a keto diet? And then you got to match a certain item on the menu to their diet. And they don't want to be doing it because obviously they've paid a fair bit of money for this membership thing. And it's just kind of teaching yourself how to facilitate people. Does that make sense? Like you got to think for them in a way, and I think that's a really cool skill that you wouldn't get otherwise. I mean, obviously you can just like chat to people in general and learn how to communicate like that, but actually being in the service industry it teaches you a new way to think, and I think that's a skill that I'm really thankful for.
And especially working in I've worked at a high-end restaurant as well when I was living in Portugal, and
Okay.
you and I remember how everything, at the start they teach a lot of things and you make a lot of mistakes, but they expect you with such a high standard and you have to treat the customers right and bring them certain things and have a certain
Definitely.
order that really teaches you to, okay, I need to remember this. And then the customer will
Yeah,
just jump out at you with a request that's out of the usual order. So you just have to think on your feet and handle it.
definitely. I mean, there was this unspoken test, and it's called the knife on floor test. And basically, within your induction, so it's like a 2-week induction, there would be a random guest, and they would put a knife on the floor, and then they would time how long it takes for you as a waiter in that section to find the knife, pick it up, and replace it. Um, it was insane, like coming from something you've never done anything like that before. and spending the whole 2 weeks just like looking at the floor because you're expecting it. It never actually happened, and it turns out they were only doing that just to wind me up because they were like, okay, he's just gonna be looking for this knife. But yeah, it kind of changes the way you think because you've got to still interact with the customer, but also consider other things going on. Have you ever seen that video with the gorilla and the basketballs?
I haven't.
No. Oh, you're gonna have to watch it. So I mean, basically, it's just like a room, a video of people bouncing basketballs, um, and then this guy in a gorilla suit walks past. But the challenge in the video is to count how many times the ball bounces, and like 9 out of 10 times, you don't see the gorilla because you're counting it until the second time. Um, like awareness, and that's something you also learn by working in the service industry, perhaps not watching this gorilla in a walking past basketball video, but you do develop awareness just by trying other things. So I mean, if you are set on a career in finance, like lots of people are, I imagine people watching this video are going to be like, yeah, okay, I want to go into investment banking. You can build skills elsewhere, and they're not the categorical financial technical skills, but they will make your life a hell of a lot easier when you start interacting with clients or leading a team and things like that. So yeah, it's super valuable, just working in a restaurant, especially a high-end restaurant, because you got that added pressure. But yeah, it was good fun.
Yeah, I agree, and that's something that people underestimate the importance of is and how relevant they can actually be, because they think, oh, maybe, okay, I don't want to work at a restaurant because that's not banking or that's not finance. But I agree, like there's a lot of skills that are transferable between jobs, and it's about finding the jobs where you can actually learn them and you get that exposure. And once you're under pressure, you learn a lot and you learn quickly. So yeah, I completely agree with you. And then so we spoke a little bit about your experiences in internships. We've spoken about other jobs that have helped you. What are you thinking for the future for yourself based on what you've learned and what you've seen?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm still pretty set on banking. I was fortunate enough to secure, as well as my investment banking internship in Edinburgh, I got 3 spring weeks in various companies. I got one large American bulge bracket, a European boutique, and an Australian boutique as well. And they were fantastic. They were all digital. I'm just waiting for the European one. I think it's tricky because of the coronavirus, and they've been like, yeah, okay, we're going to delay it, but I'm thinking it's going to be in September. But yeah, anyway, so those 2 digital spring weeks and the internship I did in Edinburgh has definitely like confirmed that investment banking is for me. So now it's just finding the right firm, the right city. Because we're a global world now. I mean, it's pretty easy to just get at least for me. I mean, maybe I'm privileged because I'm like British, but like with my passport, I can go to lots of countries like visa free, and then getting a working permit isn't too complicated. So it's kind of like I've got 2 years till graduation. I need to decide on a firm. The role is fine, and then maybe a city. But I mean, that's not like a lot of pressure. But yeah, I mean, I'm thinking sticking about in London. I think London would be cool. I don't know about you, but I like London.
Yeah, I might stay in the UK for a couple more years, or travel or go to Africa or something.
Yeah, it'd be cool.
Explore like emerging markets. But yeah, and so you've had these digital internships. Sorry to jump around a bit, but
No, it's cool.
did you notice any difference between the digital internship and what being in person is? Like maybe there were some good upsides on top of the downsides.
Yeah, I mean, there's massive, like as you can imagine, there's massive differences because basically spring weeks are glorified networking events. They just last a week. So at least talking to people in a couple of years above me, or like a year above me, who've done spring weeks before, they're like, okay, literally just go talk to everybody, anybody, learn their life story, send them emails, all of that. You can't do that with the digital because you're not actually interacting with people. So in that respect, it was, I don't want to say disappointing because you couldn't meet anyone, but it was just very different. But what it did teach me was, more of these technical skills, because obviously they realize that you can't stand in a room, meet your fellow interns. So they give you presentations about emerging markets, like you said, or we had for the American bank. Am I allowed to say banks? Is that?
Oh yeah, of course. I
Yeah.
mean, they're on your LinkedIn
I,
profile.
I, I, don't,
So.
I, don't, I didn't really know the rules. Anyway, so yeah, Citi is where I had the swim week, which is bloody brilliant. But yeah, so we had the chief AI director or something, super rogue, not related to banking whatsoever, other than the fact that it's within the investment bank because they offer a service. And it was just so cool. It's something that I can't imagine they would have had in the in-person one because there would have been such an emphasis on meeting these analysts and associates in banking and making sure it's for you. So in that respect, it's really cool. I'm not sure whether I found it cool because I knew I wanted to do banking. So maybe if someone was like on the fence, they might not have found it as useful because it wasn't just about banking. Like it was a 4-day spring week. Maybe there were like 4 hours in total on investment banking, and the rest of it was like different meeting different teams, learning about the firm, learning technical skills and things like that. But I thought it was great. Again, touched on DCF, and there was a little bit of a running joke that Citi analysts their whole time is spent delivering PowerPoint presentations. So when it got to like the end of the week and we got to meet one of the analysts, their Q&A was based on a PowerPoint, I think, if I'm remembering it right. And they were just kind of walking you through this PowerPoint, and I just thought it was funny. It's something different. I mean, Macquarie was the Australian investment bank I went to. That was really cool as well. That was a little bit different. We organized Zoom coffee chats. So you had one person from the firm and you were with 2 other people. So there were 4 people in the group, and you kind of ask them whatever questions you want for like an hour and a half, and you did that twice. That was cool. It was like the closest you could get to networking without being in person, I feel, at least in terms of like, obviously you can give them a call, but that's got to be on you. So Macquarie orchestrating this for you. I see you're laughing. What
Yeah, nobody really knows
people watching this doesn't know is Marco and I were talking about like before streaming this that I don't know how to correctly pronounce the name. He said it's Macquarie, so I'm going to go with Macquarie. Doesn't look good on me, to be honest, but hey, great bank. I mean, great bank. But yeah, I mean, it was just different. So I'd say, yeah, the people element was removed, but in its place, you learn different things. You learn more about the firm, you learn more about the job rather than the people.
I see, yeah. But if you wanted to, would you have been able to just email random people and say, hey, can we catch a virtual coffee beyond that 90-minute session you had organized? Or
yeah, so I mean, I don't know whether I'm lucky or whether these 2 people are representative of Macquarie, but I mean, they were both brilliant, and I got their details, email. I haven't called them, but I've been in touch via email, and just kind of having a chat that way. And it's quite good. So they're super transparent. They're there to help you. Like people are nice, people want to help. So like they will, which is valuable as well, because that's another context that I wouldn't have got without the spring week. Yeah.
Yeah, fair. And okay, so you've done a lot of internships, which is amazing. You have
yeah,
one more
it seems like that. Exactly. Yeah.
And so what would you recommend to students who haven't got a spring internship and haven't got any summer internships or experience, and they think they're interested in banking? Maybe they've spoken to one banker that came to the university, for example. What would you recommend they do to try and go ahead and get more internships?
Sure. So I mean, the thing with spring weeks is it is obviously useful. I'm not going to say that they're not useful, but like it's not the end of the world if you don't get one. Lots of my friends haven't got one, and that's completely fine because it kind of shows that perhaps there's a gap in what you need to get into this bank. And it's kind of a way to like retrospect and be like, okay, what am I missing? What can I do here? And I think what's missing is the people element again. Because banks know that you want to work in investment banking because it's great pay or it's an interesting job, But like what's missing, as we touched on earlier, is, why you're great. And you don't have to be phenomenal. You don't have to be an Olympian. You don't have to start a hedge fund at the age of 12. It could be tiny little things. You could play basketball for the Spanish Society intramural, little team like that at university, or, attend economic society meetings. It's just learning how to communicate that in the most effective way. And I think that's the kind of best thing you can be doing now, as well as reaching out to people on LinkedIn. As I hope I've demonstrated, you can get jobs off of LinkedIn. At least you can get internships off of LinkedIn. So that's pretty cool as well. So yeah, I mean, it's not the end of the world. Most people won't have a spring week. If you think about it like that, I mean, there was a statistic, I think it was Citi. Citi had 5,000 applicants for the spring week and only 110 places, just across the whole bank. So that's around 4,900 people not getting it. So you're not alone. There's loads of people out there. You just need to figure out how to leverage it to your advantage. Be like, okay, I didn't get a spring week. I'm really interested. Help me out. I mean, if I got a message like that, I'd want to help out. I'd want to help them with a CV, introduce them to other people. I don't want to be like, okay, play a victim, but there's definitely scope to do that as well. You can be like, yeah, okay, I need some help. So you're just going to be clever with it. It's going to be a long summer. So just start making connections now.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
And as you said, I mean, with your example where you reached out on LinkedIn to somebody and they had a firm of 12 people, you don't have to get experience at the biggest companies with more than 10,000 employees. You can go to smaller ones and get the exposure.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if anything, it was almost more valuable going to this small bank, because you're just thrown in, right? They don't have the capacity to kind of walk you through everything. So you have to learn pretty quick. And obviously that is quite intense. But investment banking is quite intense. So maybe if you can't go with that, it's the wrong career. But yeah, I definitely advise reaching out to these smaller local firms. I mean, they love it as well because, it helps them out. There are some tasks that they will be having to do that they shouldn't be having to do at that level. For example, like when I joined this bank, they only had one analyst. They didn't have an intern for the last 2 years. So they had associates and like directors, creating basic models or creating slides. And like, this is an analyst job. So that they kind of want you to do it. Does that make any sense? And what I'm trying to communicate is the fact that there is a gap. With lots of these firms, there is a gap for someone who is more junior, who wants to develop these skills to come into and do these jobs that the directors may seem like, okay, I'm too good for this. But honestly, like you learn so much just by doing it. Because it can be little things, right? Like directors don't want to sit on Excel and put in numbers. But me being 19, like working in an investment bank, putting in numbers is great. It's not the most exciting job in the world.
There's the basics, yeah.
Yeah, but I know that by me putting in numbers into these models and creating these models, I'm gonna have a skill for a very long time. Even if I stop doing it, like it was still in the back of my mind, just I'd know how to do it. And this is something you're gonna get from these smaller firms that you won't get from the bigger firms, because the bigger firms are just gonna be like, wow, okay, look how great we are. Meet this person, meet this person. They're gonna say how great we are. The little firms don't care about that. They just want you to do a good job, and yeah, they'll pay you for it.
Yeah, I agree, and I think also the exposure, because with a big firm, if you're thrown to a summer internship or a spring internship, there's about 100 other interns who are all competing for the attention of the senior people who are willing to speak to them. But if you go to a small one, then it's only one intern in your case, and maybe one analyst who then gets to speak to super experienced people, directors or managers or VPs.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, even so, we're doing a fundraise for this ESG based company in the UK, and because it was such a small team, the managing director was like, "Hey, Harrison, give me a hand with this. Start calling up VCs." Which is mad, right? Because like I'm, super new to this, and I'm on the phone to like portfolio managers, who manage, up to $1 billion, assets under management. I don't think we contacted people over that, but yeah, it was just really exciting. You're not going to get that at the bigger banks.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you don't get the independence as well at big banks. I mean, my impression was very much that you go within a team and you learn the skills within a team. And you might get moved around, but within a small company, you get to see a lot of the big picture as well. Maybe you get to have that informal chat and say, "Oh, where's this business going now?" Or um,
Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, I mean, there's going to be more accountability because like your work actually makes more of a difference, like relative to overall work. But that is cool in a way because it's your work and your work is making a difference, and you can work on loads of different sectors, loads of different industries because it's such a small company and it has to accommodate rather a lot of clients. But that's great for me because like I now know that there are certain industries I'm not interested in working with, and certain industries that like you really get me going. I'm like, wow, this is brilliant. Which is helpful for me. It's something you wouldn't get on these generic sprint weeks. You don't get exposure. And by the time it comes down to summer, lots of banks are like, okay, you're just going to work in this sector for the summer. Some banks are like, list it. And then you can kind of select your favorite to least favorite sectors. But you don't really know what you're doing going into it. You could be like, right, okay, TMT sounds cool. I want to work with Facebook. So you put TMT down, get put in it, and you hate it, but you're stuck with it for 10 weeks. Where working in a small boutique, like corporate financial advisory firm, you'd work on that project for 1 week, maybe pass it on to like an associate director, and then you pick up another project and you kind of keep on doing that, which can be tedious, but I thought it was cool. You just get exposure to so much.
and the only way to find out what you don't like is by trying it. Otherwise, you'll
Definitely.
just imagine it.
Yeah,
Exactly as you're saying.
100%.
Yeah, yeah, and in terms of more tactical advice, like when you write to these people at small firms, and you're writing to the managing partner or to the director, what kind of stuff do you include in there? Is it just like normal networking, and you include something about them, or?
So yeah, I mean, there's definitely a trick to this. If you're looking for an internship at these small companies, you got to play it really smart. Okay, so managing directors, they're like the top. They're not going to have time to meet with you for coffee, and if they do, brilliant. But like, it's not their priority. You're not their priority, basically. Analysts are going to be super open to meeting you. They just graduated, they want to meet, but at the end of the day, they don't have much leverage about like getting people into firms and things like that. So for me, like the biggest advice I can give is reach out to associates and VPs, because they're these kind of middlemen. They've been in the firm for a while, so like what they're going to say is going to be super valuable. So like what you'd be getting from an MD, they can kind of say that, but they're also super excited to get you involved, and they actually have the power to be like, hey, come in, like we'll take you on as an intern. So look out for associates. That's my big piece of advice. In terms of like actually how you communicate, it's like business formal. Is that a category of like dialect? It's like you can be like, hi, I'm a student at so and so. I'm interested in this because X. I came across your thing on LinkedIn. I really love the fact that you do this. You've got to personalize it, right? Like if you just copy and paste it, they'll know. But if you go on the website, do a little bit of due diligence, and you're like, wow, okay, these guys offer green bonds. That's cool. Not many little firms offer green bonds. And you mention it in your thing. You've already got a topic of conversation for the next time you meet. Like if they do respond, and you're like, okay, let's grab a coffee. You've already got your foot in the door. They know about it. So yeah, find something interesting. Reach out to the right people, and then don't be over. What's the word for it? Don't go over the top. Like keep it chill. You need to find the like. What's the word? Tread the line between bold and humble. You can't be like, right, okay, I'm the best in sliced bread. Right, I'm second year president of so and so society doing this. Blah, blah, blah. They don't want that. You're applying for an internship. You're at the bottom of the ladder, and that's fine because you are young, and it's fine to be at the bottom of the ladder. Just accept you are, say how these skills have taught you something. If you are president, definitely say it, because it's really impressive. Just say what it's taught you, as opposed to just seeing it as a god right for an introduction into these, more larger careers. Because it's all fine being like, okay, I'm president of the Economic Society. This means that I'm guaranteed an investment banking analyst job. It's just not like that at all. But if you're like, okay, I'm president of the Economic Society. Through this, I was able to contain costs for the ball. I led a team of 15 people in the committee. We ran 4 events a week or something like that. That just makes you so much more interesting. So if you figure out a way of communicating that as well, that's your one. So I mean, basically, how you'd structure it is like, "Hi, this is me. This is you. This is what I know about you. This is why I'm interested in you. Kind regards, Harrison," and then stick on your CV. It's simple, methodical, but it works.
Yeah, exactly. Personalizing is super important, because I mean, these people have gone through the same steps as you and I and everybody else have. So what you were saying about the society,
yeah.
They know that you can be the signatory or the president of a society, but if you haven't done anything, then they know it's worthless. And
Exactly.
They want that substance over style. And then, in terms of reaching out to them, they also want to see they actually spend some time investigating who they were and asking them questions, because everybody likes to talk about themselves. Is something else.
Exactly. I mean, on LinkedIn as well, it's so easy just to type in investment banking associate, and then you just reach out to the first 5 results. But to show that you understand them as a person a little bit better, I don't pretend you're their best mate. You're still trying to make this connection. Think about it almost as like client relationship. You got to be informal enough to start a relationship, but formal enough to actually show them respect. And I think that's what due diligence actually does. It kind of expresses it in a good way, that you're so interested that you're looking into them. I mean, they might feel, oh, I'm only an associate, but for you, that's your gateway. That's your way in. So give it the attention that it deserves, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there any other advice you'd give to students or interns or people who,
Yeah, I mean, sure. In terms of interviews and cover letters, I think what's really important is expressing why. It's like this human element, right? So I mean, I know I've touched on it before, but I can't stress it enough. Just because the fact's sure, I do economics, which is associated with banking, but it's not a finance degree, so I'm not getting these super technical things from it, and they know that. But introduce things that are slightly quirky but still quite cool. For example, I buy and sell Supreme, and you might be like, okay, fair. What does that have to do with anything? But you're making a market, right? You're looking into a product. You're being like, okay, how do I price this effectively? How do I advertise this effectively? And it's the same kind of things that business developers do, or corporate financial advisors. They're going to be thinking about these things as well. So it's super arbitrary, but if you think about ways to relate things that aren't necessarily related to the role, you're good to go. Other than that, there's a really good book by Josh Rosenbaum. I think it's available online for free, about investment banking. That was one of the things that I read. I say read, I skimmed, but it kind of teaches you a lot about how to answer certain questions, or how the industry operates and things like that. So I definitely recommend reading as well. But yeah, I mean, best of luck.
Yeah, first time I've been recommended a book for investment banking. I'll check it out. Thank you. Yeah, cool. What's your, just on a closing question, what are you thinking for your future? I mean, you mentioned now you need to pick what city, what sector exactly within investment banking you want to go into. But so you had a vision for 20 years time. What would be something cool that you'd be doing?
Right. Okay. So, I mean, this year, the next 2 years, if we just focus on that, it's going to be a very exciting time. We're going to be entering recession if we haven't entered it already yet, pretty damn soon. So we're going to be the students that graduate just as a recession is kind of kicking off, which is a nightmare. But that almost makes it more exciting, like it is something that other people necessarily haven't experienced. So that sets you up. But in terms of, if I'll disregard that, if I forget that coronavirus exists, the plans are, summer internship next year, convert investment banking analyst, and kind of see how it goes from there. I've got my eyes on private equity. I think private equity could be quite cool. But if I end up in an investment bank, a firm, which is great, a team which I love, a sector which, just, gives me a buzz, I've not really got any reason to leave. So it's pretty tricky being like, okay, where am I going to be in 20 years? I'm pretty sure I'm going to be in finance, but whether it's investment banking or private equity, only time will tell.
To see. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being on. I think we can end the broadcast.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for joining. I hope that was useful to everyone. And yeah.
Best of luck with your applications.
Thank you.